Hello my lovelies, welcome back to another video. Today I will be doing my 2026 reading update. I haven't been on here in a while, you might have noticed. Uni has sort of been a bit crazy and time has just flung, it's been crazy. So I thought I'd do a whole 2026 reading update in one video. I've only read about 19 books this year so far. A lot of them have been audiobooks as well. So let's just hop straight into it, shall we? The first book that I read this year was Lights Out. This is by Nevessa Allen. Please don't quote me on my pronunciation. I didn't quite understand the hype with this book. I don't know what I missed. I really enjoyed the characters in this, I have to admit, especially Josh. We'll get to that. Ali and Tyler, they were also very strong. I like the dynamic between Josh and Tyler as well. I think that it was very amusing, it was entertaining. I just like a good boy dynamic, you know what I mean? Some parts, the dialogue and description were actually quite funny at times, and Josh was definitely quite a funny character. He had a lot of humour in it, like, throughout the entire book. It did make me chuckle a few times, but I had a lot of negatives to say. So this is the first dark romance book that I have actually cringed at. I am a big sucker for dark romance, if you have been here for a hot minute, and I don't usually cringe, but this had me cringing, and I was very sad. I couldn't deal with the thirst trap trope, with the mask and the TikTok. It was so cringe. The plot felt like two books. The first 65% was really slow, and the last 35% was so fast paced, and I had no idea like what was going on, and it just felt very like split, you know what I mean? I did listen to the audiobook a lot of the time for this, and it was delicious, it was, but during those scenes, it was not. It was very, very cringe. His voice was not it. There was a lot of waffling between each event, and yeah, I did get a little bit bored. The epilogue, I feel, was not quite needed. It did feel a little bit like a filler. We didn't need to see her running in the woods for like 40 minutes as I listened to that on audiobook. Overall, it was funny. It was humorous. I did enjoy it to an extent, but I don't get the hype, and I have got the rest of the series to go. So I'm hoping that I enjoy the rest of the series more because they're not thirst trap tropes, I think. Anyway, so I gave this a 3.25 star, which I think is pretty generous, if you ask me. The next book I read in 2026, now this was something very different compared to what I usually read. So this is Strange Pictures by Uketsu, who is, I think, a Japanese YouTuber. He has written many, many books in this series. I think this is the second. I don't quite know, but I really, really enjoyed this. It's like a mystery sort of thriller, and you have to work out sort of, it's like different stories, but they all link to one murder, and then at the end it all comes together, and it's so clever. And may I just add that, like, there are like diagrams and pictures and drawings and all sorts. It's really interesting. If you want something fresh, new, and you like mystery and thrillers, I would definitely give this a go. It is definitely really good. I gave this a 4.25 stars. It was very fun, it was fresh, it was different. I love the illustrations that were linking to the story, and I love how it all came together at the end. Towards the end, when things were unfolding, it did get a little confusing because you have to remember every little detail throughout the story. So it's not one that you can just read over the span of a month because you'll forget it all. Some of the links did feel a little far-fetched, but it was fun, it was gripping, and it was a nice refresher from all the stuff that I had read before. So I do recommend this if you haven't seen it about or haven't read it. It's very short, it's very quick, and yeah, just don't read it over the span of a month because you won't remember anything. The next book I read was, this was audiobook. So if you all didn't know by now, which I'm fairly sure you all do, Heated Rivalry came out. I love Heated Rivalry. It was amazing. I watched half of the show before I think I watched the first episode, and then I read or listened to this as an audiobook. because I watched Scott and Kip's story. I watched it after I listened to this. So I listened to Game Changer on audiobook. This I gave a 3.75 star. So obviously I started this because of the adaptation. So I wanted to get into this, and I'm so glad I did. I was travelling a lot for uni, so I had a lot of time to listen to all these audiobooks. I wasn't sure what I was getting into at first. I admit I was very cringed at the beginning. The audiobook was kind of cringe, the voices were a bit... I found myself rooting for them more than I thought though, which was really interesting. And I found myself like desperate to continue the story. So every time I wasn't travelling to uni, I'd find myself like having the audiobook on anyway, even if I was just at home, like, I don't know, doing chores or something probably. Yeah, I think it was the cast that made me cringe at the beginning, because once I like sort of got past that, I was so like invested. I was so... Oh, it was so good. It was adorable. It was steamy. I really, really enjoyed this, and I definitely continued the series, obviously, because why wouldn't I? Obviously. So that was Game Changer that I listened to. Then once I start a series, I continue the series like straight after each other. So then I listened to Heated Rivalry. This I gave a 4.5 star. I didn't have much to say to this because obviously it was amazing. Obviously. The characters, Ilya and Shane, gorgeous. I loved how much more detail there was in the book compared to the series. Obviously. It was really nice to get to know them from the origin that they were created in the book, you know what I mean? So yeah, it was humorous, it was great, it was obviously heated in the title. Even in the series, I don't quite get the rivalry. Like, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like there's always a chemistry there. There's always that, I don't know whether it was because I watched the series first, but there's always chemistry there. I never got the rivalry part. So yeah, that was really, really good. That was the second one I listened to. Then I read This Secret History. I started this before I started the audiobook. So technically I didn't read this midway through the series. I actually started this before the audiobook. I think I took like just over a month to read this. I mean, it's chunky. It's really chunky, and like the words are so small. This has probably been my favourite book of the year so far. I think everyone has read this by now. I loved it. I didn't quite give it a 5-star, but I gave it a 4.75. I have never read a book that has pulled on my heartstrings as much as this has. I have never read a book like this before. It's dark academia, just sort of general fiction, and I loved every inch of it. It's quite long and advanced in terms of like its vocabulary. But yeah, it did take me about a month, maybe a bit longer, to actually finish. And when I put this book down, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. It was so good. I think every time I picked it up, I'd binge it for like 3 hours. I would not be able to stop thinking about it. So it was really engraved in my brain, and it still is. But I did find myself struggling to pick it back up when I did put it down. And I wonder if that's because I either didn't want to finish it because it was so good, or it was very intimidating. Either way, when I did pick it up, I couldn't put it down. So the characters, right, some of them are bad guys, but they were created with such emotion and such intensity that I genuinely felt for them. Like Bunny, I mean, so many people don't like Bunny, but there's something so deep going on there, and he's created with such like emotion that I think like he just deserves to try again. But I don't know, I just loved even the bad guys. The plot did confuse me at times though. I think it's the way that it's laid out, and I think it's meant to be, because it was all sort of explained at the end, which is when I was truly invested. Yeah, I would genuinely spend a whole day reading this book, like I said. I would just spend all day. The world building was really actually quite clever. I noticed that a lot of the time the weather would symbolise the plot or how the characters were feeling. But I think for this book, the strongest element was the characters. Without that character creation that and their development throughout this story, I don't think it would have been as intense as it was, you know what I mean? Like, I think that the characters and their progression is what made this story so, yeah, like a whole Pinterest board about this book. Look, tell me that this is not accurate as hell. Can you see? Accurate as hell to the characters. Just can't. Just like, oh. I love this book. It was so good. But the only reason why I didn't give it a 5-star is purely because it did confuse me at times, and when I put it down, I did struggle to pick it back up. So I think it's just because of the intensity of the book is why it's not quite a 5-star, but it is, but it isn't. Anyway, I could go on for days about this book. So let's move on, okay? Let's move on before I get too intense. After this, I listened to Common Goal, which I gave a 4.5. This was my favourite book in the series. Don't ask me why. I have no idea. Well, I do have an idea, but so many people say that they didn't like Common Goal, and I don't know why. They say that they didn't quite like Kyle, and I think Kyle is just like a golden retriever, but like a really sexy golden retriever. So Kyle is an absolute sweetheart, as I just said. Eric is an experimental king. We love it. It's great. Their relationship was not only spicy, but the sweetest thing I have ever listened to. The way the characters progressed throughout the story was gorgeous, and I just loved every second of their relationship. Their progression was intense. It was amazing. It was just the way that Kyle had been so gentle with Eric and sort of giving him that time to be experimental, and, you know, Kyle's my favourite character so far. I would love to see more of him in the adaptation. We only see a bit so far, but he's the biggest green flag. He's actually kind of funny as well. He's beautiful storyline, beautiful characters, beautiful relationship. Really, really enjoyed Common Goal, which I think is not a common opinion. Tell me if I'm wrong. Did you guys like Common Goal? If you've read it, let me know in the comments. After that, of course, I listened to Tough Guy. This was mid for me. I gave this a 3-star. It wasn't my favourite. I love the characters more than the plot. I don't think there really was much plot in this one, which is why I didn't quite enjoy it as much. Fabian and Ryan are very cute together, and they are also very cute apart. I found myself giggling, kicking my feet at times, like it was adorable. And I love the different themes that this book focuses on compared to the rest. Like, each book focuses on specific themes, and I really enjoy that because I like how they brush upon, well, not brush, but they sort of brush, but it's like the main sort of themes. I like that, and they're handled in really mature ways that sort of brings insight into the readers. So yeah, I do unfortunately think that this story lacked plot. I don't mind though too much because I do enjoy character-driven stories. The only other thing I will say is it was around the middle of the story where I think it was like just like 20 pages, I'm not too sure, of just pure intimacy, if you will. It was very tiring and it got a bit boring, and it's just like, okay, we get it now, let's move on. But it was adorable, it was consensual, it wasn't bad, it was just a little bit boring and it did get too long at times. But other than that, the characters were adorable, the themes were handled in such a mature and insightful way. Yeah, anyway. So the next one I then listened to was Role Model. I gave this a 4.75 star. No, I gave this a 3.75 star. Role Model was adorable. These are all adorable. I love the characters in particular. What I really liked about Troy is how normal he is compared to every other hockey player. He's so normal. He's chill. He's just a normal guy. Whereas the rest have all got some sort of like unnormal thing about them, if that makes any sense. I found his character really interesting. I would have loved to have seen more of his family than just Harris. Oh my god, Harris is so cute. I loved his family, I loved his story, but I feel like we didn't get to hear enough about Troy's, if you know what I mean. Harris was very down to earth as well, which I really, really liked. Yeah, he was adorable, interesting. But they both had great depth. I just wish that Troy had more depth. Like, they both had great depth, but yeah, we didn't get to see too much of his story. I could read an entire second book of these two characters because I felt like there was so much that was needed, that was not missing, but that was needed to be said. I could read an entire second book of this. I genuinely could. There was not like a huge amount of plot, but more than some of the others in the series. There was more than Tough Guy, but I appreciate it being maybe a character-driven story because, like, I enjoy that as well. With the plot that there was, I was actually very invested, and I just wish there was maybe more. Like I was saying just now, like maybe have a second book, there was more. And lastly to mention, I have to mention the dogs. I love dogs. If there's any animals presented in books, I will instantly bump it up another star. As long as they're not hurt, it's all good. I love dogs. So that was a really good thing in this book. So that's that series done. No. I have one more, of course, obviously. How can I miss that? In between, because I had my birthday, which was Easter. I had Easter, so I wasn't listening to audiobooks too much. I managed to finally get round to Archer's Voice. I gave Archer's Voice a 4-star. I have heard very mixed reviews on this book, and I do see both sides, but this was an annotated version that also had an extended... Hold on. I can't tell if there's an extended epilogue or a special epilogue. Give me a sec. Yes, all new extended epilogue. I don't know how many people had that in their book or had the annotated special edition, but I don't think that I would have enjoyed it as much without the annotated parts because she was explaining a lot of it at the side of each section. So I thought that that was really nice to read and it helped a lot. The way that she writes about romance throughout this book was so incredibly unique and it felt so relatable in some way because it was so, I don't know, it was just so emotionally driven and it felt relatable and it touched my heart in ways that romance books don't usually do. The whole sign language concept, I thought it just brought a whole new level of depth. It was beautiful. It's very unique. I really enjoyed it. It also brought a whole new level of depth to Bree and Archer's relationship as well. It was beautiful and it was very like non-judgmental in terms of their relationship. It was just the way that they both had their own like sort of sign language slang to each other and it's just so cute. I will admit though, I think Bree personally did come across quite cringy. And it did take some time for me to warm up to her, unfortunately. But Archer was a beautiful character, and the character progression towards the end was so heartwarming, and I never didn't like him. I think that it was really, really good. So I gave Archer's Voice a 4-star. I really did enjoy this, but there were a few bits that were a bit... And like I said, I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much if I hadn't had the annotated part. That's for sure. She explains so much. I bought that in America when I went in Barnes & Noble and it was the last one there and it did cost me quite a few doubloons, but I think it was worth it. It was really good. So I finally got round to that. Now, my next book was on my Kindle. This is very, very out of my genre of reading, if you will, but I really, really enjoyed this. So I read Addicted by Krista and Becca Ritchie. I really actually enjoyed this. I want to read the rest of the series, but I don't know whether it would be a lot, if you know what I mean. And also they're not free on Kindle. This was free with Amazon Prime. I gave this a 3.75 star, which is pretty average for me. But yeah, due to like the popularity of this series, and it is quite old now, I think, as well, I really wanted to get into it. I keep seeing it just popping up. And I know that people read it a long time ago and it was quite popular. So I thought, why not give it a go? It's free. it's been on my Kindle for like donkeys of years. So I finally did get into it, and I'm really glad I did, because it was so interesting, like seeing inside the mind of an addict's head. So we have Lo and, oh gosh, what's her name? Lily. Lo and Lily. So Lo is an alcoholic and Lily is a sex addict. And it's really interesting to see like what they go through on a daily basis, and especially that they codepend on each other as well, which is really bad. But it's quite interesting to see what goes through your mind when you're codepending on people, if you know what I mean. Because they know it was bad, but they didn't want to stop. The plot twist near the end for me was kind of obvious, because they brought it up quite a lot during the book and how they brought it up. So it didn't shock me as much as it probably should. I also really, really would have loved to have seen Lo's point of view. I don't know anything about the other books apart from the fact that we continue to follow on their story, but I really would like to see Lo's point of view and what goes through his head, because we got to see Lily's point of view and what goes through her head as a sex addict, but it just would have been nice to get his point of view, and especially his point of view on their relationship as well and what he thought about it. The other characters, such as Lily's sisters, Reich and Connor, they sort of blended, if that makes sense. Like, they sort of didn't feel like separate characters. Like, there wasn't really much depth to them or uniqueness. They sort of felt a little flat, that they blended in together. If you get me. It was a shame, because I liked the characters. I just would have liked if there was maybe a bit more uniqueness to them, and they didn't feel like too flat. But it is what it is, because they were good still. I did like the dynamics between them as well. That was really, like, Reich and Connor was quite funny. I think that there could have been a bit more there, but hey ho. Yeah, overall, I did really, really enjoy this book. I just wish that I had Lo's point of view as well. I don't know if they have that in the other books, but I do want to get to the rest of them. They're very expensive to buy the physical copies. I might have to get them on Kindle. Then I finally finished Game Changer series. So I listened to the long game, so I went back to uni by this point, and I gave a 4.25 star. I so loved this. I think the character progression of Ilya and Shane throughout the series, because obviously they popped up midway through in other books as well, was so good, and it was so interesting as well, because not only did they show the side of the romance and the love, but they also showed the side of struggles as well, which was really interesting, and how they overcame these struggles as well at the end, at the happiest, you know. I enjoyed their progression and their relationship as well. It just showed that not all relationships were sunshine and rainbows. There were struggles. You are going to be apart for a lot of the time. And I'm very, very happy with how the series ended. I think it was adorable, and I'm so happy that they all got their happy ending, including the dogs. Including those dogs. They got their happy ending too. I just think it was really beautiful. Even the bad parts, I say bad parts, even the struggles was also beautiful, because they all dealt with them, and they all dealt with them in a mature way. And they finally communicated. The miscommunication was very annoying throughout this series, I will admit. I don't like miscommunication, and boys in general do not communicate very well. Like, come on. All you had to do was just send text or something. But hey ho, it is what it is. So that series is finally done. That was a 4.25. Then Release Me was released. I read Watch Me. I really, really enjoyed it. I gave it a 5 star. I think it was just so fun. I listened to this a lot on audiobook, which it was fun. It was good. I think the characters were played really well. I gave it a 4 star. I cannot get enough of these characters. I think if this book was completely new characters, like James and what's her name? Rosabelle. If James and Rosabelle just had like a whole new story without the other characters, I probably wouldn't enjoy it as much. So this led me on to saying that Tara Murphy, she writes men so well. I love how she writes them. They're so funny. Kenji. They're also very powerful. Warner. But I do think that it's very distinct that most of her passion and love does go into writing men more than it does writing the women. I just think that they have more to them than the women, if that makes sense. But saying that, she has created like some of the best characters that have just stuck with me for years since I read Shatter Me series. There were a few issues with this one in particular. I do think that a lot of the scenes were overwritten. They could have been shortened down. Like I said, it was on audiobook and I would zone out for 5 minutes and they would still be in the same room talking. And I'd think, come on, you can move on now. I spoke to a few other people and they also agreed. So that's really interesting as well. In particular, Rosabel's chapters felt very waffly. There were a few times where I would skip a little bit because it was just unnecessary. It was cringe, sort of boring to me. This goes on to me saying that I really struggling with Rosabel. I don't know if that's a popular opinion or not, but I'm not too keen on her character. I don't understand, like, no offense to James, I don't understand the hype with Rosabel. Like, I'm sorry, bro, I get that you're in love, but I just don't get the hype. She's slightly annoying. She doesn't communicate, which is also very annoying. And there's nothing massively impressive about her. She feels like every other sort of main character girl that's sort of like looking for an issue, but there really doesn't need to be one, if you know what I mean. It was kind of annoying how much he admired her and how much he obsessed over her. You do not need to be obsessing over this mid-annoying girl. Just find someone else. But I did really enjoy the audiobook. The narration was really fun as well. And they had different people. So there was like multiple people in the cast. And when they were talking to each other, it just felt so real. Like listening to Kenji and Warner argue, or like James and Warner argue. It just brought the book to life, if you know what I mean. So that was really, really fun. Love that there's so much history with the characters as well. It's almost like we've watched James grow up. And we've watched Warner grow up. And we've watched... I don't even know what's happening to Juliet. My god, I don't even know what's happening with Juliet, by the way. She was barely in it, and when she was just sort of like watching them talk. I'm excited for the next one. Also, these covers are gorgeous. I literally went up the day that it was released and I managed to get it in the works because they didn't have it in Waterstones at the moment, and it's beautiful, and it's like the first edition as well. Let me show you the front cover. It's gorgeous, and they had like 3 in there and they were all gone by the end of the day. But yeah, just a little moment for the cover. Then I read Divine Rivals. Ooh! I listened to this and read it half and half. So I gave Divine Rivals a 3.75. I finally got round to this. This has been sat on my TBR cart. Look, I've got the second one there for years, literally years. And you know what? It was way better than I expected. Not what I expected, but it was way better than what I expected. And it didn't disappoint as well. The audiobook was really good. I was a bit worried because it is very heavily sort of plot driven, and I was worried that I was going to get bored of that on audiobook, but I didn't. And I just think like Rebecca Ross's writing, it was so beautiful, and the pace was fluent and it was fairly steady as well, so it didn't bore me and it kept me entertained. There was no points of standstill either, so that helped with engagement. I loved the war setting. I don't usually read war books, like books that are based in the war, and I really, really enjoyed that. And for some reason, I think it's because my family are very interested in that sort of thing. We've always gone to museums and war things, but it felt very nostalgic to me. I wasn't even alive in the war. It was very interesting that it felt like that to me, and I thought the letters were a really nice touch and they were very unique. I've never read anything like that before, and I was wondering how it was going to work, how typewriters could write to each other, but now it makes sense, and it's just so cute, you know? So there was one thing I did have an issue with though, and that was with Roman. Well, It was with Roman and Iris. I didn't get their chemistry for so long. Like, I didn't see it. They were so much better off as friends, even in the letters. I didn't see their chemistry. I only saw their chemistry, I think it was like halfway through the story. I started to see the spark and I started to see the chemistry. And then I think it was when they got together, I finally was like rooting for it all. I wasn't really worried at any point at the end, if you know what I mean. I saw most of it coming. It was sort of self-explanatory. I don't know if anyone else found that, but I sort of saw a lot of it coming. But it was really good. I'm very intrigued to read the second one now. There is a third one. That's why I also read this one, because I want to get to the third one, and I can't get to the third one if I don't read the first and second. So, but I'm really glad that I did. It was so good. Yeah, I have nothing else to say. It was really good. I'm just glad I got to it. So, if I move them away. But those are all the books that I did read in 2026, but those are my novels that I read. I started getting into mangas, and I don't rate mangas. I just read them for fun, and then I just say that I've read them, and I don't rate them. But I read Chainsaw Man Volume 1, Chainsaw Man Volume 2, and Chainsaw Man Volume 3. I do watch the animes before I read the mangas. Don't ask why, I just prefer it that way. So after Chainsaw Man, I got to Spy Family. So I read Spy Family Volume 1 and then Spy Family Volume 2. And then I also read the first volume of The Summer Hikaru Died. I think that their anime was so beautiful that I wanted to get into the actual manga version, because there's a few things that isn't included in the anime that is in the manga. And I really wanted to see that, and I just love the artwork. It's beautiful. And yeah, so those are all the books that I read, including the mangas, in 2026. 19 books overall. And yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching if you did get this far. Put a little book emoji in the comments if you did get this far. And I hope you enjoyed. And I will see you in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and stick around, because I will hopefully be posting a bit more now I am done with uni and assignments. I will see you in the next video. Bye!